Let's go into detail on the ISO 19650. Okay, that is in relation to building information modeling. Okay, so the ISO 19650 is actually a series because there are 5 parts altogether. So sometimes I call it a series. Facilitates information management by providing a framework, and the framework uses the following 4 principles. Firstly, it requires the creation of a digital twin of the physical construction. So firstly, there is the physical building, then there is also the digital building. So we call it a digital twin. Right? Secondly, it requires defining information requirements for facilitating the selection of the project partners. Thirdly, it requires planning and testing of the information requirements. And fourthly, it requires implementation of common data environment for management of information. The ISO 19650 series is not a standalone document that people use in a silo. You can also relate or use information from other standards that has some relevance to this particular standard. So that's why we call it a ecosystem. Okay, so you can have an ecosystem of the following BIM standards. Okay, under the ISO documents. There is ISO 12006 talking about building construction. There is ISO 16739 talking about the industry foundation classes. Remember I talked about the fact that some of the design software, the input and output, the file extension, cannot be read by other design software. So you need to convert it into a .ifc format. IFC stands for International Foundation Classes. So that the data can be used by the different software that don't talk to each other. So you can have an ISO 19650, which is what we are going to talk about. For the lecture today. The ISO 23338, which is talking about the building information modeling and other digital processes used in construction. And the ISO 23387, which is talking about the BIM, but specifically the data templates, and the ISO 29481, talking about the BIM also, but in relation to the module, information delivery manual. The ISO 19650 is meant to provide a framework for managing of information, in business processes when using BIM modeling. So it helps to answer some of these questions, or maybe the chief financial officer may be looking at the cost, the designer will be looking at how to manage the information, the facility manager will be looking at the what's wrong with the drawings, and the owner could be overwhelmed with so many different types of information that is flowing across the different stakeholders. So the standard basically try to have organization and digitization of information in relation to buildings, civil engineering works, that include this BIM. So it's it's information management, using building information modeling. There are altogether 5 parts in the this document called the ISO 19650. Part 1 is talking about the principles and the concepts. It defines the concepts and the principle for information management in a BIM process and provides a recommendation for a framework to manage information, including exchanging, recording, versioning, and organizing for all actors. Also applies for any kind or any size of projects or actors. Actors just refers to the different stakeholders. Part 2 talks about the delivery phase of the asset. It specifies a management process for information in the delivery phase of the asset by defining a methodology of production and distribution of the information. So this part 2 is dedicated to the collaborative production and exchange of architectural, engineering, construction information to answer the client's requirement. Yeah. As well as the framework, it defines the roles and responsibilities and explain the collaboration workflow around a project, okay, CDE. CDE refers to a common data environment, which leads to the production of the project information model. Part 3 talks about the operational phase of the asset. It specifies a management process for information in the operational phase of the asset. In this part, the process is dedicated to the exchange of information for the use and maintenance of the asset. That means when the project is completed and is handed over, what does the facility manager do? Part 4 talks about the information exchange. It provides process and criteria to support the satisfaction of a specific EIR. Remember EIR, we talked about that previously. Yeah, or related to the exchange of any information. The criteria are defined to check, okay, for individual information exchange, okay, the completeness, compliance to the former exchange schemas, continuity of concepts between the exchanges, and elimination of spatial and specification conflicts. Part 5 looks into the security aspect, okay, of the information management, in a sense that it provides a framework to help address security implications, consequence of the use of information and the communication technologies. So what does it take to implement the ISO 19650 standard, all the 5 parts? Well, obviously it will require the company to put in the time and the cost, okay, resources. The company may need to develop the skills, okay, of the appointed person that is in charge of implementing the system across the whole company. Yeah, or the company will need to identify, okay, inefficiencies in the existing processes, okay, arranging for the resources needed to implement the standards. Yeah, appointment of competent persons, okay, to assess the impact of the standard in the company itself. The implementation can be broken down into 4 phases or 4 steps. And step 1 require the company to understand, okay, the value chain. Yeah. So there are at least 3 key points, okay, that the company will need to look into. Okay. Yeah. The first one is to clarify the industry boundaries. So the market opportunities, they are changing day to day in the digital age. Okay, it is essential for the company to be aware of the whole life cycle of a BIM project. Okay, even if the company itself is just taking a small part, okay, of the particular project. Yeah, all participants can help in decision making. Yeah. Now the company will also need to analyze, okay, or the company's value chain. Yeah, the company must define, okay, the value chain at present. What is it we have, okay, and in the future, what do we aspire to be, to be producing, okay, or the internal processes, the input, output, considering the differences between the traditional project and the BIM projects. Yeah. And the company will need to identify the most relevant functions in the business model of the company or organization. So depending on the size of company, okay, everything can't be done at once. Yeah. So in most cases, implementation should be gradual and focus on the activities, okay, or that is of most value on the value chain, okay, or where the return of investment can be, more higher, okay, compared to the other activities. Step 2 require identification, okay, of the impact of the standard. So what the company need to do is to identify the impacts deriving from the standards for the main business functions and the activities associated with these functions. the standard is a very good opportunity for companies or even the professionals, okay, in the construction industry to adapt to the digital era in a structured way with a step-by-step method. Yeah. So essential to make out the impact of the standard at two levels, okay, which is the internal processes within the company and externally when the company is interacting with the clients and the suppliers. The other key point to take note is to also select relevant indicators to identify the major impact of the standards. Yeah. Selection of key indicators and measuring them repeatedly is a basis, okay, to control whether the standard process within the company, if they decide to implement this particular standard, is it improving or not. Step 3 will be to analyze the value drivers as well as to determine the operational indicators. So the key point, okay, includes identifying, okay, value drivers to focus the assessment on the impact of the most relevant standards. Yeah. So to get most out of the standardization effort, okay, the companies must drive their energy or direct their energy to the activities, okay, where the changes have the most significant impact in improving the desired indicators. Okay. And the other key point is to determine the key operational indicators that can be used to quantify, that means measure, okay, the impact of the standards and to translate them into financial terms, into numbers. Okay. So indicators for private companies, okay, usually will be in relation to economy, profit or loss, okay, increasing productivity, right, obtaining the quality, the right quality products. For companies, there are public companies or not-for-profit companies. Other than the profit or loss, okay, they may also want to address, okay, indicators in relation to this providing public goods, okay, or of benefit to the community, right, to the society, okay, to nature. Step 4 is to assess and to calculate the results, or after the standard has been implemented. So we want to quantify the most relevant the impact, okay, after the standard has been implemented. Okay. Yeah. So well-structured digital information allows us to calculate and to monitor the indicators for the many of the challenges that we are facing in the construction sector. Okay. Or improving the living and the working conditions, or reducing the risk to the people's health. Okay. Or reducing global warming. Yeah. The other key point, to consolidate the results by aggregating. That means you combine. Okay. Combine all the the beneficial impacts. Okay. For the company. Yeah. So the last task is to integrate. Okay. The new confirmed processes, the activities, the different stakeholders, the deliverables, corresponding indicators into the quality management system of the company. Yeah.